Hello, this is Salvatore Vinciguerra. Welcome to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park in Tennessee and North Carolina. In this video of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, I'm going to be sharing with you Laurel Falls, Cades Cove, Abrams Falls, Clingman's Dome, and the Newfoundland Gap. When you first arrive at the national park, I highly suggest that you visit the visitor centers that they have, either the one in Tennessee or the one in North Carolina by Cherokee. Each of these visitor centers is quite unique in that they both provide a different telling of the history and the preservation of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. My first adventure at the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is to visit Laurel Falls. It's 1.3 miles from the park road, and what is good about a lot of the different hikes throughout the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is that they are paved. I would highly suggest that even depending upon the time of year that you visit the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, always bring with you some water and some snacks. And it's good to also have a hiking stick so that you can, as you're walking up the mountainous terrain, you do have something to stabilize yourself as you're walking through the various parts of the trail. See how mountainous it is right here? You can see the rocks, and this is part of the view as you're going up to go see Laurel Falls. Keep in mind that on this hike, it's about 2.3 miles round trip. Hikers need to climb about 314 feet in elevation before arriving at an 80-foot waterfall. When you're traveling on the trails, make sure that you have good shoes on. Also note that you need to make sure that you are always attending to children and other people who are on this trail, as there are drop-offs and it can be very dangerous. And here's actually a view of what the drop-off looks like from the trail. Laurel Falls has to be one of the prettier waterfalls and easier hikes at the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And I would highly suggest that take some time and make sure that you have about a good 2 to 3 hours to do this hike. So that way you can walk out to the falls, make sure that you have time to rest there, and then walk back. And now I'm going to be visiting Cades Cove. I highly suggest that you speak with the park rangers before visiting the Cades Cove area at the visitor station, because you may end up being turned back, or you may end up in a lot of traffic depending upon the time of day that you visit. Now, I got up really early one morning and I was one of the first people to get on the driving tour of Cades Cove. On other days they have it so that this area of the park is closed, and it's only open to bicyclists or maybe people who are going to walk through the park. Cades Cove is an isolated valley located in the Tennessee section of the park. The valley was home to numerous settlers before the formation of the park, and today Cades Cove brings in almost 2 million visitors, and that's because of the well-preserved homesteads, scenic mountain views, and abundant display of wildlife. My tour of Cades Cove is going to include some of the historical structures, and the first tour that I'm going to be giving you is of John Oliver's cabin, and this is a hike that I did from the road out to the cabin, and it's quite a walk, but it's a nice morning walk or afternoon walk, depending upon how you feel at that time of day. But the air is very cool. This is summer, and it still is very cool if you're walking around in the morning and visiting some of these historical sites. John Oliver's cabin was constructed between 1822 and 1823 by the Cove's first permanent European settlers. Dunn reports that the Olivers spent the winter from 1818 through 1819 in an abandoned Cherokee hut and built a crude structure the following year. The Oliver cabin was built as a replacement for this crude structure, which was located only a few yards behind the cabin. Notice throughout the video the different photographs of the clouds and the fogginess and why this particular park is called the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Next, I'll be visiting the Primitive Baptist Church. It was constructed in 1887. The church was organized as the Cades Cove Baptist Church in 1827 and renamed Primitive Baptist after the anti-mission split in 1841. The Olivers and Russell Gregory are buried in its cemetery. This is the Cades Cove Methodist Church. It was constructed in 1902. Methodists were active in the Cove as early as the 1820s and built their first meeting house in 1840. Geologically, Cades Cove is a type of valley known as a limestone window, and it's this weathering of the limestone which produced deep, fertile soil, making Cades Cove attractive to early farmers. Halfway around the loop to Cades Cove is a visitor center, and I highly suggest that you stop there, you get a snack, and make sure that you visit some of these other historical buildings on site. This is the Becky Cable House. It was constructed in 1879, and this is the John Cable Grist Mill. It was constructed in 1868. John P. Cable, 1819 to 1891, was a nephew of Peter Cable, and he had to construct a series of elaborate diversions along Mill Creek and Forge Creek to get enough water power for the mill's characteristic overshot wheel. Now I'm on my next adventure to see Abrams Falls. Notice that this trail is moderately difficult in nature and that you're going to have to walk for about 2.5 miles out and then 2.5 miles back. So it's a total of 5 miles total, and this could take a few hours. Look at the terrain and don't forget to stop and make sure that you take plenty of breaks, especially when you're doing a very long hike through the mountains like this. Keep in mind that this is one of the 10 most dangerous hikes in America, and this is because of the high risk of casualty statistics that have occurred while people are walking along this particular trail, and that's as a result of either lightning, altitude sickness, extreme weather, and drowning, which are among some of the measures that have resulted in people dying from walking along this trail. Although you will see people swimming in the water right by the waterfall, keep in mind that this is quite dangerous to swim here, and that's because of the strong currents and just the presence of an undertow can make this extremely dangerous for people to swim here. Both the waterfall and the creek are named after a Cherokee Indian chief by the name of Asuka, who later adopted the name of Abraham. His village once stood several miles downstream from the waterfall. This amazing elk welcomes me to Clingman's Dome. Clingman's Dome is at an elevation of 6,640 feet. It is the highest mountain in the Smoky Mountain National Park, and is the highest point in the state of Tennessee, the highest point along the 2,192-mile Appalachian Trail, and also the third highest point in mainland eastern North America. There is a visitor center at Clingman's Dome, however it was closed when I arrived, and that's because one of the park rangers suggested that it would be quite unique to go and visit Clingman's Dome at sunset, and that's what I did. So in some of these pictures, you're going to see the sun setting, and I'm doing this as I'm kind of driving out of Clingman's Dome, but you kind of get that experience of what it would be like to be on Clingman's Dome during this time. And visibility isn't all the best. As you can see, it's very smoky or cloudy. The hike to the Clingman's Dome observation tower is only a half of a mile. However, it is a very steep half of a mile once you get to the observation tower. And once you get up here, as you can see from the pictures, what you're about to see is based upon the weather of the day. And sometimes the clouds allow you to see the mountains from different vantage points, and sometimes they don't. This is also summer, and so when you climb Clingman's Dome, it may be 75 or 80 degrees in lower parts of the Smoky Mountain National Park. But once you climb to this particular elevation at this particular time of day, you could have temperatures ranging from 55 to maybe 45 degrees, with gusts of wind making the wind chill a little bit even colder than that. The Cherokee name for Clingman's Dome was Kauahi, or Mulberry Place. According to a Cherokee myth recorded by ethnologist James Mooney in the late 19th century, the mountain was home of the white bear, the great chief of all bears, and the location of one of the bears' council houses. The enchanted lake of Ataki, Gall Place, the waters of which could cure wounded bears, was believed by the Cherokee to be located somewhere between Clingman's Dome and the headwaters of the Oconaluftee River to the east. The southern Appalachian spruce fir forest, which covers Clingman's Dome, occurs only at the highest elevations in the southeastern United States, and has more in common with the forest in northern latitudes than with the forest in the adjacent valleys. Clingman's Dome stands prominently above the surrounding terrain, rising nearly 5,000 feet from base to summit. The forest on and around Clingman's Dome has experienced a large die-off of the Fraser fir, caused by a non-native insect. And you can see this in many of the videos and pictures that I have here, not only here, but in different parts of the Smoky Mountain National Park. And this is something that the park rangers of the Smoky Mountain National Park and ecologists are very concerned about. The next few pictures are of the sun setting on Clingman's Dome, and I'm driving down the mountain, and I'm just stopping to get a few pictures here and there of the sun setting. Make sure that you allow enough time to get back to wherever you're staying, especially if you're going to be visiting Clingman's Dome during this time of the day, and if you're not used to driving through the mountains at night. The Clingmans Dome is closer to Cherokee than it is to Gatlinburg or the Elkmont campground where I'm staying. The next day, I'm visiting the Oconaluftee Visitor Center, which includes Mingus Mill and the Mountain Farm Museum. To my surprise once again, I find elk grazing in the water. The Cherokee considered the waters of the Oconaluftee sacred. Dora Woodruff Coop, who lived in the Oconaluftee Valley near Smokemont around 1900, recalled a legend her Cherokee neighbors told her. Part of the river was called Yanuhu Nata Wastiyi, where the bears wash. It was a deeper part of the river where all of the animals came to wash and heal their wounds when they had been hurt by hunters. No white person had ever seen this place because evil had blinded us to its existence. The animals knew how to find it, and diving into it meant instant healing. The term Oconaluftee comes from the Cherokee village name Oconaluftee, which means by the river, and appears in the journals of John Bartram in 1775. Where along the river this village was located is unknown, although anthropologist James Mooney believed it to be situated near modern Birdtown, between Cherokee and Bryson City. Archaeological evidence, however, has identified a Cherokee settlement along the Oconaluftee north of the Qualla boundary, just inside the present-day national park. While the Cherokee roamed the Smokies far and wide, this is the only known permanent Cherokee settlement within the park boundaries. This village was probably destroyed in 1776 by the army of General Griffith Rutherford during the American Revolution. The elks then go and graze by the visitor center and the Mountain Farm Museum. The museum is a collection of several log buildings from various places around the park, the purpose of which is to depict a typical mountain farm in pioneer Appalachia. Gardens are planted during the spring and summer, and barn fowl roam the premises. Throughout the entire national park, don't forget to stop and look at the flowers. They are quite unique, and whether they are big like this or even small and microscopic as this one is off of a fern, they're very important to the ecology of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Certainly there's a lot of wildlife in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. There's wild turkey in Cades Cove. I had a barred owl in my campsite in the Elkmont campground. There's black bear throughout the entire national park. And when I was at Laurel Falls, we were also warned that there was a mother bear and a cub in the area, and for us to be careful when we're entering those particular areas. Now, my particular visit here, I did not see any black bear, but I did see plenty of elk. I even had people come up to me and ask me, is this an elk or is this a moose? So I want to clarify that this is an elk, or wapiti, and it is the largest species within the deer family, and one of the largest terrestrial mammals in North America and northeastern Asia. Elk range in forest and forest edge habitats, feeding on grasses, plants, leaves, and bark. Male elk, such as this one, have large antlers, which are shed each year. Males also engage in ritualized mating behaviors during the rut, including posturing, antler wrestling, sparring, and bugling, a loud series of vocalizations that establishes dominance over other males and attracts females. Now I'm on my way to the Newfoundland Gap, but as I'm getting there, you see some of these mountains that I'm going to be showing you. And some of them, if you can look at them and analyze them, you can really see the different variations of the mountains and the different heights and elevation. One of these actually depicts where Clingman's dome is, and you can kind of see it from this vantage point. So if you're looking right in the middle of the screen, there are two mountaintops right there, and the highest one is Clingman's dome. The Cherokee described these mountains as shakunaj, meaning blue like smoke, a smoke-like natural bluish haze and mist-like clouds that rise following a rainstorm provide the inspiration for the name Smoky Mountains. During the growing season, the Smokies' lush vegetation emits large quantities of moisture and organic compounds. Together they form the natural haze, which is the thickest on calm, sunny, humid days. But the misty veil is not all nature's work. Air pollution contributes too. In recent decades, visibility in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park has decreased dramatically. Because mountains tend to trap air currents, the effect of pollution on visibility and plant life is greater in the Smokies than in some other areas. Air pollution comes to the Smokies from sources both far and near. Pollutants and the problems they bring take many forms. Today, many of the Smokies' plant and animal species suffer from pollution-induced impacts, such as acid precipitation and high ozone. Here is the Newfoundland Gap, an elevation of 5,048 feet. It's a mountain passage located near the center of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park of the Southern Appalachian Mountains in the United States of America. Situated along the border of Tennessee and North Carolina, the state line crosses the gap, as does Newfoundland Gap Road, which overlaps U.S. Route 441 through the park and ends at the park's boundaries near Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and Cherokee, North Carolina. The Appalachian Trail also traverses the gap, as do a small number of other hiking trails. The Newfoundland Gap is also home to the Rockefeller Memorial. The Rockefeller family donated a lot of money to make sure that this national park was preserved for future generations. This is a popular destination within the national park and the site from where former United States President Franklin Delano Roosevelt formally dedicated the park on September 2nd, 1940. This is Salvatore Vinciguerra. Thank you for watching this video on the Great Smoky Mountain National Park in Tennessee and North Carolina. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to this channel, and have a great day. Thank you.